the one at the beach is probably one of the most iconic Friends episodes, certainly one of the most iconic from season 3, and it's actually the finale of season 3. It's episode 25. It's directed by Pamela Fryman, and there will be spoilers as I discuss various aspects of the narrative. And sometimes I will go through things chronologically, but I think with this one I will discuss the various subplots and the main part of the narrative. But very briefly, this is the episode where they all go out to the beach. I don't think that needed to be explained. But this is the one where they're in that very sandy beach house, and as soon as you see an image from this episode, it's just instantly clear which episode it's from, and I absolutely love it. It actually starts off at Central Park. Bonnie is there, instantly establishing that Ross is still dating Bonnie, because I feel like in the previous episode it wasn't clear. It wasn't necessarily clear that Ross was going to continue seeing her, but she is still in this episode, or still in the show, and I don't know how I feel about Bonnie as a character. I think what she brings is pretty good, but Rachel's feeling very hurt. I don't like seeing that in Rachel. I'll come back to that part as that takes up most of my thoughts. But first of all, we need to discuss Phoebe. And Phoebe, we have Phoebe Abbott, played by Teri Garr. And I'd forgotten that we don't know what we know at this point in the show. I can't explain what I mean by that because I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen beyond this episode. But we do find out something quite significant. And I'd forgotten that there was a time when we don't know that. And I was kind of taken by surprise that it had taken this long to get to this point. But I'll say no more than that. But Phoebe visits Phoebe, who she believes was one of her parents' closest friends. And she visits her because she believes that she would know where her father is. And of course, we learn something very significant. And we learn that she's her mother, and it's mind-blowing, and we don't actually get that much information beyond that. But I would say it's very unexpected, but then when she says she's all floopy, I think it's very clear that what she's saying is the truth. But I'll say no more about that until we learn more as the episodes go on. But it's certainly very unexpected, and it's a nice little bit of progress for Phoebe, as other than when she met Frank Jr., we haven't really had that much progress for the character, so it's nice to get a little bit of forward movement. The rest of the episode is about them spending time at the beach. They're very bored because it's pouring down with rain, and they decide to play, well, they're going to play strip poker, but they end up playing strip Happy Days. And there's this adorable moment, which I absolutely love, where Phoebe's spinning around and she's selecting the person who'll decide the game, and she selects Chandler. And Chandler's holding a glass with a sandcastle in it, and it's just the cutest thing ever. It's absolutely adorable. And they end up playing strip Happy Days, and one of my favourite moments is when it cuts to Joey and he's basically naked, and just his expression is absolutely fantastic. Amidst the boredom, Rachel is painting people's nails. She tries to paint Ross's nails. She's clearly flirting with him. She wore that ridiculously giant hat at the beginning because it was something that Ross bought her. At this point, it's not completely clear whether she's doing this because she's jealous of Bonnie or if it's because she still cares about Ross. But later on in the episode, she admits that they broke up because she was mad at him, not because she stopped loving him, which I think is really significant. And I'll come back to how the episode ends in a moment, but before that, we need to talk about Bonnie. Bonnie does show up. Rachel is obviously very annoyed by this, and she seizes the opportunity to convince Bonnie to shave her head again. And on the one hand, Rachel was doing that for selfish reasons, but at the same time, it's not like she forced Bonnie to do this, and it's something Bonnie was very quick to agree with. It didn't take much convincing. I don't necessarily see there a problem with her shaving her head if that's what she wanted to do, but certainly it came as a surprise to Ross. The fact that Rachel apparently handed her the shaver, I thought, was pretty funny. But if this is something Bonnie wanted to do and she feels really happy about it, then I think that that's a great thing. Ross might not agree, though. Before we get in with the ending, the final scene, a few other things that are worth mentioning. We have Chandler telling Monica that if all else fails, he'll be her boyfriend. And Monica thinks this is hilarious. Chandler tries to make her change her mind. And with this, I'd say it's not very clear if Chandler is doing this just because he wants to be right and wants to convince Monica of what he said, or if he actually has feelings for her. And again, I can't say too much about that without spoiling future episodes, but it's definitely very interesting. Also, Joey and the Sand Mermaid. Absolutely loved it. Definitely one of the most iconic bits in this episode, and something that probably features in a lot of compilations. It's a very interesting moment for Joey to wake up with sand around him and a pair of sand breasts. Definitely also very impressive. I don't know how they managed to get that sand to stay in place for so long, but I'm impressed. So, the ending. I can't imagine the frustration of watching this on broadcast and having to wait however many months to find out which room he went into. Because we see Ross going into a room and saying hello to somebody. Is it Bonnie or is it Rachel? Obviously, I know the answer, but that would have been so frustrating. So I'm really glad that we live in an age where I can binge watch these. Having said that, I can't remember the first time I saw this episode. I probably watched Friends out of sync to begin with, as I used to watch it in the morning before school, and then I got the VHSs, and I bought the VHSs from charity shops and car boot sales, so that wouldn't have been in chronological order either. But maybe there was a time when I didn't know which door he went into, and the frustration would have been immense. But it's a very, very strong way to end a season. It is a very strong way to basically guarantee the season will be commissioned, or the show will be commissioned for another season had it not already been. So definitely very powerful, probably very frustrating. But either way, The One at the Beach is a brilliant way to end the third season, and it's a very strong, very, very memorable episode.